let's drink some water. Usually I don't have bottles of water. Usually I have a glass of water. But I've been up and down stairs a dozen times already this morning, and I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like going back upstairs, so I grabbed a bottle of water. All right. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to not see you because I don't see you, but thank you so much for tuning in and listening to or watching this video. I love doing this. I love recording videos, except I got to stop moving my desk because my camera's shaking. I love recording videos. I love speaking. I love teaching. I love leading. This is an excitement for me. This is a passion. And part of one of the formulas that I follow, and I don't know why I'm holding my phone case, is to take action steps on what I'm passionate about, what I love to do. And this is one of those things. So here I am, and today I would like to title this recording "For the Love of Statistics." Now, I want to talk for just a few moments today, few minutes, not moments, minutes, probably several minutes, about the idea of the habit of, the tendency to be in our heads, to think. Yes, our mind is a beautiful tool, but it is also can enslave us when we are in this place of thinking compulsively, constantly thinking. Now, as some of you know, I am a yin yoga teacher, and what I love so much about a yin yoga practice is the stillness and the calm and the quiet and the peace that comes along with a yin practice. It is about being present, about being, right? So if you look at your life, you may be one that's like doing, going, next thing, distract, avoid, compulsion, addiction. Not everyone likes a yin practice because a lot of people don't like to be still and quiet. And they tell themselves they can't be, but they also don't like to be because that's when they have the opportunity to check in with what's going on within them. And that's why we distract ourselves. That's why we, have that practice of avoidance. That's why we move to our addictions. It's because we're not in a place where we can be with what's going on in our bodies. And yin yoga gives us that opportunity to practice the introspection, practice simply being instead of doing, and to listen, to be in the present moment, because the present moment is when life is happening. It's not happening 5 minutes ago, and it's hopefully going to happen 5 minutes from now, but everything is right now. When we are thinking, when we are in our minds, and there's a couple of things that I want to talk about in regards to that, we are not present. Most of the time, if not all of the time, we're not present with what's happening in our lives. Now, I have some statistics for you, and I don't know if I mentioned this already. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Doesn't matter. I'm referring to this as, or calling this recording "For the Love of Statistics," and I have a couple here I want to share with you. The average person has between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot of friggin' thoughts. That is a lot of thinking. That is addictive, compulsive thinking if you're having up to 60,000 thoughts a day. Of those, 90 to 95% of the thoughts that the average person has are repetitive thoughts, which means the average person is thinking the same thing that they thought yesterday and the day before and the week before and the month before and the year before and the years before. That is a huge percent of thoughts that we are repeating every single day. Remember, 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day, 90 to 95% of them are repeats, and 80% of those thoughts are negative. Now, I don't have the source with me. This is research I've done in the past. Go ahead and Google it. Go look it up and find these facts for yourself. But 80% of them are negative. Now, our thoughts create our reality, what we believe to be true about ourselves, what we believe to be true about life. Our entire existence is rooted in our belief systems. Life is a 100% reflection of our strongest programming, our strongest beliefs, our strongest definitions, the thoughts we think. So if 90 to 95% of them are repeats and 80% are negative, for the love of statistics, what is that saying about the life that the average person is creating? And remember, you're creating your own life. Okay, let me come back. Because sometimes I have this tendency of going off into different branches, and I'm learning to stay in my own lane and to move forward with what it is I really want to focus on sharing with you today. When we were children, we lived in our bodies. We were that I amness. We only spent time in our minds when we were using our imagination. But as we were programmed, as we were wounded, as we experienced the traumas and the conditioning of childhood, we spent more and more time up in our minds. And we turned to things. For me personally, it was food. I also play with my nails a lot, and I think that's another way. I don't bite them, but I know that I'm like constantly playing with my nails. But it was a way of retreating from the challenges of life, the disappointments, the sadness. So we turned to other things. And for me, I turned to food. We spend more and more and more time up in our minds. And what happens is all of those feelings and those emotions and the pains and the disappointments and the hurts that we don't want to feel, right? So we distract ourselves, we reject them, and we box them up. And they remain boxed up deep within our bodies, deep within our bellies. Now, a practice like yin, that is an opportunity to start opening the door a little to those feelings and emotions that are knocking on the door of your awareness. And again, for a lot of people, they're like, nope, don't want to, let me move into a power yoga class, an active vinyasa class where I'm moving from the next to the next to the next to the next to the next. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. I love all types of yoga. So we began to retreat more and more to the swirling maze of thoughts in our minds. We began to become addicted to this idea of thinking, compulsive thinking, thinking our way out of a problem, thinking the solution to a problem, thinking about the answer, thinking. And we began to reject that feeling part of us, which is so vitally important. The thoughts that we have in our minds are around stories of I am not and I should be. Now, this is the first thing that I want to invite you to start paying attention to, is when you realize you are up in your mind, ask yourself, am I creating a story that is centered around this idea of I am not or I should be? Think about that. Wow. Feel into that for a moment. I'm not enough of something. I should be something else. So when we go back up into the swirling maze of thoughts in our mind, it's typically around stories like that. And a lot of that has to do with our past and bringing our past forward. So we see today and moving forward from eyes of the past. So I want to start with that. Another practice that you could do is this. Generally, our thoughts, and another thing I invite you to pay attention to, our thoughts keep us anchored in the past to some sense of an identity, and they project this need for salvation or security or fulfillment out into the future. Both of these things, these habits that we have, take us out of the now moment. And this right here is where everything is happening. All of the answers to your questions, the solutions to your problems, the next right step, the next right action, your inner guidance, the feeling part of you can only be accessed in the now moment. So what another practice or an exercise that I invite you to play around with is when you notice that you're back up, you've climbed back up that ladder into the mind, ask yourself, am I thinking about something in the past? Am I thinking about something in the future? There's an exercise that sometimes I do with clients, and I'll have them get centered, quiet and still, and I'll have them focus on something like their breath or a sound in their room, just anything that they can shine their light of attention on. And I say to them, when you notice you've gone back up into your mind, into your thoughts, if you notice that you are thinking about something in the past, and usually it only takes a second or two, maybe 3 seconds. If it takes longer than, well, I'll tell you that, but it shouldn't take longer, or it doesn't need to take longer than 2 to 3 seconds to realize I am now thinking about something in the past. And then squeeze your left hand twice and silently say to yourself, past, past. And then bring your attention back to that one thing you decided to focus on, like your breath or a sound in your room. When you notice your thoughts or your attention begins to wander back to your thoughts, check in again. If you're thinking about something in the future, squeeze your right hand twice and silently say to yourself, future, future. And then bring your attention back to whatever it is you were focusing on. Shine that light of attention back to whatever it is you're focusing on. If you notice you've gone back out into the swirling maze of thoughts in your mind, and it takes longer than 2 or 3 seconds to realize that you were either in the past or the future, squeeze both hands together and silently say to yourself, thinking, thinking. And bring your awareness back to the present moment, to what it is that you were focusing on, your breath, a sound in your room. This exercise, it doesn't need to take more than, you could do it for 3 or 4 minutes out of your day. So instead of scrolling through your news feeds for 3 or 4 minutes, put the phone down out of reach and try this exercise, try this practice. You will begin to recognize just how often you go to thoughts, just how often you remain anchored or you continue to anchor yourself in the past. and how often you're projecting fear and uncertainty and anxiety on a future that hasn't even happened yet. And to realize that doing this compulsive thinking takes you out of the now moment. Now you may ask, well, what's so special about the now moment? I've been asking myself that question. I've been looking for answers outside of myself, looking to teachers who are in this practice to see what they have to say. So I've been listening to what they have to say, but then I remember that nothing is outside of myself. And the only way for me to understand what benefits come from my present moment is to actually practice it and to be present and to feel into what it is I'm experiencing. I find peace and ease and calm, but I'm discovering so much more. I feel like I want to say out there, but it's actually in here. That is available to me. Mainly my inner guidance, the voice of my intuition. When I can step out of my own way, when I can take the ego part of myself out of it, because that's the mind. The ego and the mind are connected. And this idea of a need for identity. So present moment is where it's happening. Doing your best to recognize and acknowledge how many times you are going to your mind. Loving yourself regardless of how often. When you start discovering it's like oh shit, I spend a lot of time in my mind. Hold yourself in a place of love. No matter what it is you discover, you're learning. You're remembering, you're relearning the importance of the present moment. And you will begin to make your own discoveries on what you are finding beneficial by disidentifying with your mind, by calming or reducing the amount of thinking that you do in any given day. Understanding what you're using for distractions and making some changes in regards to that. Realizing that life is happening right now and that your preference would be to be in life rather in stories about life, because that's what we do. We go up into our minds about stories. We create, spin stories about life, about who we, quote unquote, try not to do the quotes, should be. Present moment helps you to see who you really are, your true core essence. And I think I want to stop there. Yeah, I'm going to stop there before I start to branch out again. So, for the love of statistics, wow, those are pretty high numbers. 12 to 60,000 thoughts per day. 90 to 95% of them are repetitive thoughts. Start paying attention to what you're thinking. This is how it all began for me. I started to pay attention and I would say to myself, wow, that was a thought I had yesterday. Why am I having this thought again today? Today's a brand new day. Why am I carrying this thought? Not so much why. What is causing me within myself to have this thought again today? So start paying attention to what it is you're thinking. I was talking about the statistics. And 80% of the average person's thoughts are negative. These are huge numbers. Start paying attention to what it is you're thinking throughout your day. the words that you're saying to yourself, the words that you're saying to other people, how you're communicating. Check in with those stories of I am not and I should be. Play around with that exercise that I gave you of past, past, future, future, thinking, thinking. Let me bring my awareness back to the present moment. I invite you to have the willingness to reduce compulsive thinking and increase the amount of so-called time that you are spending in your present moments, and watch the magic happen. Find those benefits, discover those benefits for yourself. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Aveo.